I didn't know what to say. To admit that we needed a hiding place was to admit our identities. If this was a trap, if he was only a gentler, kinder version of that woman we met on the road, or a clever Schmalzkaunik, then with a single nod of admission, I would walk us directly into it. But if I refused his help, doubled down on my lie, perhaps he would make us leave this wagon, and I'd rather be here if it was safe. Esther sat forward. Offering to help anyone hide is a serious crime these days, and refusing to help is a serious sin, he shrugged. That's what my wife believes. Last September, she was in Lodz when she heard screams coming from within the ghetto, women begging for their children. She followed the cries to the train station and saw what happened, the children being taken away. When the soldiers weren't looking, she grabbed 2 of the children from the train and hid them in this very wagon. We've raised them as our own now, along with a Jewish man who helps on our farm and keeps an eye out for any passing SS men. I'll bring you girls in as my orphaned nieces, should anyone ask. But we'll try to keep you out of sight if possible. There's a false floor in my barn. I can't promise you safety forever, but I can promise that no one in my family will ever betray your trust in us. Silence followed, and I was surprised to find myself considering his offer. After months of fighting and running and lying, I was exhausted. What if he really was offering a place where we could hide and wait out the war? A place to forget all about the resistance. But I never could do that, even if I wanted to. If Esther was right, then at this very moment there were hundreds of fighters in Warsaw, trapped in the ghetto, scrambling to fight to figure out how to defend the thousands of Jewish civilians. Nazi tanks could roll in there any day. Esther had some sort of package to deliver. They needed our help. Tears filled my eyes, but I blinked them away and blamed it on the sting of the cold wind when he noticed. I think you're a good man, Whit, full of courage and honor, and may be rewarded for what you're doing for those people. But my cousin and I need to find our grandmother, and we will. When you come to the turn in the road between your farm and the road ahead, please drop us off there. If you stay in this wagon, I can save your life, he said. Leave, and you will almost certainly lose it. Hadn't those been almost my very words to Abraham and his friends? I begged them to come with me, to save themselves. They had refused because they believed their lives had a higher purpose, as I had to refuse this man for a similar reason. When I told him so, he nodded, seeming genuinely sad, but so was I. I didn't dare look back to see how Esther was feeling because I was sure she was equally tempted to accept his offer, and I didn't want to see that. My decision was made. Little was said between us as we continued the ride. He knew who we were, but that was all right because now I understood who he was too. When he did stop the wagon at the turn in the road several kilometers ahead, he pointed to the right. Stay on this road for as long as you can. If the Germans come looking for you, they are less likely to go that way. I smiled, hoping to lighten the heaviness in my own chest. What a coincidence. I'm sure our grandmother is just ahead on this road. Whit's expression back at me remained serious. Your grandmother must be a good woman to be a part of your family. I hope you will stay safe with her until this terrible war is over. My eyes felt hot and I didn't know what to say. I hoisted the bag higher on my shoulder and gave him a nod of thanks. It was time for us to go. Wait, he reached into his pocket and pulled out some money, which he offered to me. It's all I have here, but I want you to take it. No, sir, I can't. Wherever you're going, you need this more than I do. One more thing. I was out delivering some bread for my wife, but Sorry. I was out delivering some bread for my wife, but I think we can spare a little. He opened a bag at his feet and offered us an entire loaf of bread. It smelled so good, I wanted to dive for it, but I held my composure until he placed it in my hands. With sincere thanks, I accepted both the money and the bread. Then Esther and I climbed out of the wagon with heavy hearts. We said nothing to each other as he drove away. We turned and silently continued down the road. The money he'd given us would help a little with replacing the items we had lost in loads, and I was determined to save as much of it as possible for ammunition when I found any to purchase. I think Whit was being honest, Esther finally said. I think he would have hidden us. He was one of the good ones, I said to myself more than to her. I intended to remember Whit Galinsky for as long as I lived, to remind myself that wherever there was evil, good men and women would also rise up to fight it. For the first time in weeks, I felt hope for the future.